Thank you, guys. Good afternoon. My name is Gazmend Zeneli, and I'm today's speaker. Okay, first of all, I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm very thankful to the people who invited me, being at Clinton School of University of Arkansas, Clinton School of Public Service, a great school named after a great man, who really, as he pointed out in his address to the nation on the 4th of March 1999, acted preventing a great war and acted to protect thousands of Albanian people. And that's why he is honored as an Albanian, honored as a hero among Albanians, and really I'm thankful. I'm grateful to be here. So before starting my talk, I would really like to thank two people. Dr. Christine Standarfer, Associate Professor of Communication here at this school, and Dr. Gazmend Zeneli, Professor of English Language and Literature at University of Marin Barleti, who really were very instrumental on negotiating that memo of understanding. And of course, Dr. Rutherford and Professor Maringlen Spiro, our Director of University, who made it possible. So, and of course, all the staff of faculty here has been really, very great people, and I'm enjoying the last 2 weeks that I've been here. So I put a title which is sort of, we run on SCYLLA wishing to avoid CHARYBDIS. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Greek mythology, but that's certainly, it roots to the Greek mythology. SCYLLA was a sea monster and CHARYBDIS was a whirlpool. And all the sailors, that's a sort of an coast of today's Sicily in Italy, Messina actually, and all the sailors has to go through this stride, but trying to avoid the one, they would fall on the other one. So there was almost no way to escape. So Odyssey, the famous guy, who was really a clever guy, said, okay, we'll avoid CHARYBDIS, which was the most likely that they would sink the ship. And so we ran SCYLLA, which was a sea monster. He said it shows that better fighting against the sea monster than endangering the whole crew. And he really did well. He lost 6 of his sailors, but he did well. So my question is, striking on beating poverty, unlocking prosperity, increasing wealth, are we jeopardizing the environment? How many of sailors are we going to lose, or how many of our sailors are we losing, or did we lose already, and how many of them are still losing before we say, okay, we're going to save away? So if I sort of raise a question, what would be the top 10 environmental issues, I'm sure all of you will come with a list of 10. And there will be a variety of them, because our perspectives are quite different. But if we sum up all the questions, all the answers, I definitely will come with certain lists, maybe 15 or 20 of them, although it might be 30 people in a room and get approximately 300 answers, possible answers. So undoubtedly, for many of us, climate change and global warming would be one of them, but we still end up with a huge list. Since I said we would rank the top 10 environmental issues, we said overpopulation, natural resource depletion, loss of biodiversity and habitat fragmentation, waste, energy, air pollution, waste, and soil contamination, all these kind of things, acid rain, urban sprawl, and deforestation. As I said, the list might be a little bit longer than 10 if we collect all the answers, but I'll focus on have considered top 10 environmental issues. Climate change, definitely, it is one of the biggest environmental issues, or was considered and still is considered. And the overwhelming majority of climate scientists still believe that a human affected the climate change, and that also leads to global warming. And we are correct, some of them think that we have already passed the tipping point, and we are to a point that we really, have to think more about it. This was the cover magazine from the cover from Time magazine in 2001, and this just sort of put some eggs, and the egg would be sort of fried on sun. In 2007, sorry, exactly 7 years later, Time magazine goes on and said, well, we have to develop a survival guide. I mean, where the heat is taking on, so Earth is warming up, so we have to develop, I mean, they have put 51 things that we could do to survive. And more or less at the same time, for those who speak German, I put a cover of a newspaper, daily newspaper in Germany, that said, wir haben noch 13 Jahre, das Leben mit die Erde zu retten. That means we have only 13 years left to save the world. And considering that the picture or the newspaper came out on February 2007, so 7.5 years, 8.5 years are already gone, we have only less than 5 years left to save the Earth. But I don't know if that's true. Anyhow, global climate change and global warming has turned to be one of the most controversial and political top 10 environmental issues. So there are people who think that really the climate change is just a hoax. And they started from some emails that some scientists claim that, okay, they made up the story. Anyhow, these are what the website, they say global warming is a hoax, and this was in 2009. And global warming hoax was exposed by climate gain. I mean, drawing parallels with Watergate, the famous Watergate. Well, some of them goes even a bit further. They called Mr. Obama, the President Obama, and some of the US leaders as a communist, or, I mean, the Jews, starting from progressive to socialist, communist, left-wing radicals, anti-capitalist, and, you know, putting equal sign to anti-Americans. Well, I have lived in communist country, so I know what communism means, but anyway, you might agree or might disagree with that. So, and going on, drawing parallels with, I mean, with this communist kind of thing, they called Mr. President's speech or conversation to Mr. Gorbachev at Brandenburg Gate in June 12, 1987, said, Mr. Gorbachev, please lay down this wall, the wall which split Germany in two countries. And they said, okay, there is a question, what will Mr. President Reagan will say today concerning the climate change? And they said, okay, well, they made up a nice story that looks good. They said, okay, Mr. Obama, tear down that wall, the wall that you and liberal Democrats have built around the natural resources. These natural resources belong to us, and they will help our prosperity and will help in economic well-being of the country. So global warming is a hoax. Okay, while we disagree, or sometimes agree or sometimes disagree about climate change, we definitely agree with some of other environmental issues. Undoubtedly, one of the major environmental issues which we are facing is overpopulation. As a matter of fact, all the other, or the majority of other environmental issues come from that fact that we are overpopulating the Earth. So the world population, for those who believe in the Darwinian theory of evolution, it took millions of years to reach 1 billion. For those who do not believe, anyway, it took several hundred years but to reach 1 billion. And it took 123 years to reach the 2nd billion, and merely 33 years to reach the 3rd billion. So with today's speed, the world population increased by 13, will increase by 1 billion, need 13 years to increase to reach another billion. So on average, world population is growing by 2.4 people a second. You know, we have 1 point people dying and 4.2 people on average. Yeah, people cannot be 4.2, but on average we have a net gain of 2.4 people per second. And by 2050, there are estimations that 6 countries will have more than 300 million inhabitants. So when I was preparing some sort of outline in this presentation, I could go to a website which is a data source of U.S. Census Bureau, the State Population Division. It said on Tuesday, August 18th, the population reached 7,390,530,000. And considering that this was 2 weeks ago, So the population has increased maybe by another 100,000 or so. So the world population is growing by 83 million people in a year. So what are the consequences? Of course, we'll have inadequate fresh water for drinking as well, sewage problem. We will have depletion of natural resources, especially non-renewable ones, increased level of air pollution, and loss of ecosystems. I mean, these people have to live somewhere. So other deforestate some areas. And the last estimation are that about 8 million hectares of forest, which will be sort of acres 0.4. It will be, like 20 million hectares, 20 million acres are ripped off or forest years are lost every year. So another big issue is ozone depletion. Actually, that correlates with two different phenomena, or means two different phenomena. One is, well, both the phenomena was discovered in the early 70s. One is what is called ozone hole, so that the depletion of ozone at polar regions. And the second one, which is sort of ozone layer depletion, it's sort of 4% decrease per decade in total volume of ozone. If we disagree, or if we can agree about the chicken and the egg story about the climate change and global warming, if it's human-induced, if the CO2 carbon dioxide increase in atmosphere, it's really effect of it's human-induced. These definitely are human-induced. These are the primary cause of ozone depletion is the presence of chlorine-containing source gases, mainly chlorofluorocarbons and related hydrocarbons. So another big issue, which I think would have come up if we had as a question, is the municipality waste. What I have seen here in US, I used to live in Europe. I mean, I used to travel relatively a good time of my life. Here in US, you use a lot of recycling materials, which is good. I could see here, I mean, papers, cans, and all these plastic bottles, which are good. I mean, you still recycle, but the first R in a triple R dilemma is reduce, reuse, and recycle. You go to the third R, which is good. You reuse things, recycle things, but it would have been better if we really start from the beginning. And that's what's happened when things are not reduced, reused, and recycled. These are what happened with Naples. I don't know if any of you have ever visited Naples or visited Italy, but Naples is said it has been one of the most beautiful cities in Italy and in Europe. And they have a say in Italian, vedi Napoli poi mori. They say, you see Napoli and then die. I mean, you have reached the maximum, what you could have seen. But then Naples, they got this nasty story. They said, if you come to Naples, you die before you see it. Because, okay, it's not much. I mean, you won't breathe fresh air. I don't know how long that will take. And you won't be able to cross the streets. That's beautiful Naples, and then you get pictures like that. Okay, why shall we care? Of course, I mean, there's several costs related with the waste, either the solid waste or the other waste. Of course, the first one, which I dare of and I care of, it's environmental cost. Waste contaminated water, drinking water, and groundwater and air. Secondly, I produce, although we treat that waste, I mean, recycle it, still there is cost of us energy and produce significant greenhouse gases. There is a social cost related with that, and definitely the economic cost. The economic cost of recycling or managing waste are high, and those are paid by local governments. So maybe if there were state government money or federal government money, people won't care that much because, okay, they have a big pot. But for local government, especially in small towns or in small countries like Albania, it's really a lot of money. So instead of going for other services, they will go for waste treatment or waste management. And so, well, that's still, I mean, affordable. The problem, the biggest problem comes with when toxic waste or hazardous waste comes into question. And for that, you don't see huge piles of such waste. It usually goes underneath. And I took this from a newspaper which is actually old, relatively old. In July 5th, 2010, there was the East African newspaper saying that EU and US dumping toxic waste in Africa. I don't know if that's true, but I'll show some data which sort of support that idea. And if there are no data for the waste dumping, or there's no official data on the waste dumping in waste dumping in Africa, at least there are some other stories that I can prove that are true. We all remember that in 2013, US signed an agreement with Syria destroying their chemical weapons. And the question came up, where shall we dispose them? And this was a conversation between Secretary of State, Mr. John Kerry, and Mr. Obama. I don't know if they make up the story, but anyway, I think there's some truth in it. Said Mr. Kerry was worried no one will take the chemical weapons. And Mr. Obama said, the Albanians love us, they will do anything we say. And as a matter of truth, we love US. Maybe we are the only country or the only nation who has 3 statues of the US presidents in the country. We have one in Kosovo, honoring Mr. Clinton. We have one in Tirana, which was Wilson, President Wilson. And we have one in Croatia, so Mr. Bush. So for a while I was commuting between Croatia and Tirana, which is sort of like 45 kilometers, and I could go and say, good morning, Mr. President Bush, and then I would say, good morning, Mr. President Wilson, because that's all Christina knows that, that's on my way to work. So we really love US. But anyhow, we really learned from US to say no. So Albania rejected US request to halt disposal of Syria chemical weapons. There were protests going on, and then finally the government gave up, although they had promised the US that they would accept disposal of Syria chemical weapons. Well, that's story like, okay, that's good, good for presentation, but that's not really only good for presentation, but it's a dirty business going behind it, what are called environmental crimes. And according to the UNODC, which is United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, in 2013, around 31 environmental crimes were committed, and 41% of them involved illegal waste disposal and cement. Italia's mafia, one of these famous ones called Dragheta, best known for drug running, are earning $20 billion a year by turning the south of the country in a toxic waste dump. And not only they dump on their southern part of the country, but they ship some vessels to Somalia or some other developing country, and others sinking the ships there or burning in the land. Well, these are not abroad, but we live in Arkansas, and we have well, I'm a guest, but as long as I'm living here, I also feel part of Arkansas. So we have Walmart. We have Benton, was that, the Walmart Republic? Okay, we have what I called on the way last weekend, I saw this huge warehouse of Walmart, and I sort of coined the name Walmart Republic. And but in November 2000, sorry, it's not 213, but it's 2013, Walmart stores has pledged guilty of violating the Clean Water Act by illegally handling and disposing hazardous materials at these retail stores across the United States. And they were pledged guilty, and they had to pay a bill of $81 million. So, and because by improperly handling hazardous waste, pesticides, and other materials in violation of federal laws, Walmart put the public and the environment in a danger, at risk. So the story goes on. I mean, here you live in a really nice country, very rich in water sources. And I have been a lot of beautiful, I visited Eureka Spring, I visited this Crystal Bridges place, and I visited Washita Mountains, and I would sort of pass through Ozarks, mountains. So I have seen a lot of creeks and a lot of beautiful sceneries and a lot of water sources. And you might not feel it actually in Arkansas, but people elsewhere are feeling that. According to the latest data, sort of this one was 1st of June 2015, and based on satellite data, they say that more than half of Earth's 37 largest aquifers are being depleted. So it means that we'll have run out of water. We'll have to find some other sources of water. And you can find them. I mean, the people in Africa or Arabic countries are doing it. They are using salt water, but of course, there's a high cost related with that. And on top of that, so there's water pollution and floodings. I mean, that's not the right place to talk about flooding because 10 years ago, well, not here, right here, but in Orleans, we had a lot of floodings, and you know what it caused. I mean, because of a Katrina hurricane. But this is a pedestrian walk in Skoda, in northern Albania, and to me it looks beautiful. I mean, I've seen maybe more beautiful places, but still that's beautiful. And this looks after flooding in December 2011. I don't know if any of you have visited Venice, but that place in Italy. But the other place recalled me Venice. It's like people using this cruising with gondolas, and that's basically what happened. You know, but these were streets or not water canals. So another important aspect is the biodiversity and endangered species. Biodiversity, which is referred as a degree of variation of all life forms, including species and up to ecosystems, is a measure of health. I mean, the richer the ecosystem is, the healthier it is. Of course, there is some connection with climate. You don't expect a rich biodiversity region in polar region, you know, because climate conditions are extreme. But usually, we expect that higher biodiversity should be somewhere in tropical region or temperate region. But our development, maybe sometimes unsustainable development, is jeopardizing the biodiversity especially. And rapid environmental changes cause mass extinction. This is estimated by the IUCN, which is International Union of Conservation of Nature, which is an international organization, that almost 1% of our species have gone already extinct. So they will never disappear in the world. And out of this list of more than 40,000 species which are accessed under IUCN red list, almost 40% of them, which is something like 16,500, are really threatened to be with extinction. So the IUCN, just to give you an idea, IUCN have a list, have 5 categories of endangered species, starting from vulnerable or the status unknown, all the way to the extinct species. So that's a really dangerous, it's coming closer to home. And for those who have seen that picture maybe before, they will recall that it was from Gulf of Mexico. By that time, this was 2008, oil hit a record price of $122 for a barrel. Nowadays, it's much cheaper. It's something like $45 a barrel. But still, is it worth when you see this kind of pictures? I don't really think so. So why should we care? I mean, we've got all these environmental problems, but why should we care? So, well, I listed several reasons. First of all, Earth is the only planet we have. So we don't have a second one. I mean, there are no money you can buy it, because there might be rich people who can buy certain things. And yesterday I was told stories that this lady, the Walmart owner, she could go in an auction and buy all masterpieces of the painting and put on in the museum and crystal bridges, sort of competing even with Metropolitan Museum of Art. But no matter how much money you've got, you don't buy a second planet to live. Because, I mean, there are more than 900 exoplanets, what they call that outside of our solar system, but they might have conditions similar to Earth. Even the close cousin, which was discovered a year ago, sort of the 100 named after the Kepler 186F, which is the closest cuisine of Earth, is 490 light years away. So that's, to my standards, a little bit far away. And even if it was 490 normal life years, I mean, like 365 days, that would be way too much. You know, it takes 6 generations. I don't think any of us would live as long. So we got only one planet. We have to think about that. And we're running out of non-renewable resources. There are plenty of resources out there, actually, and there was some report from European Environmental Institute that's saying that in these canes that we use, there are so many out there that we have aluminium for 300 years, but still without mining at all. But we still go mining, and some days we might run out of resources. We don't use that. And Earth is the main producer of natural medicines. I mean, no matter if you are old or young, you know, if you are a newborn child or you are, adult, you still, to some days, you will use medicine. And the best medicine, they say, that's our natural medicine. And there are more than 1,200 compounds, which really people say, people who deal with medicine, say that it's only 10% of them discovered which are used. So that's much more there. In Mediterranean, there is a theory which is called signature theory, which said that each disease got a cure, and it's a plan for that. And depending on the shape of the flower or the shape of the leaf, that would help. It's similar with the shape of the disease that it cures. So if you got a heart-like shaped leaf, that might help for the heart diseases. Well, I don't know if that's true, but there are a lot of papers going on that story. Anyway, the main point is that, okay, Earth is the only producer of natural medicines, let's put it this way. And on top of all, future generations deserve a planet. I mean, it's good that we run on the forest and we breathe fresh air, we enjoy the nature, but what will be our legacy? So what we have done so far? So we've got all this trouble, what I have done so far. And Jonathan is holding my camera, digital camera, and on purchase one, I got a user manual, which is 110 pages. And I thought, well, that's a hell of it, I'm not gonna read it. So, and that's the problem, I think, with the Earth. As Fuller put it that in his book, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, there's outstandingly important fact regarding Spaceship Earth, and that is no instruction book came with it. I don't know if God forgot to bring that instruction book or did it intentionally. Maybe he did it intentionally because imagine for a digital camera, we'll have 110 pages of booklet. How thick would be the operating manual for Earth? So he said, well, the people like us who never will get to read it, so leave them operate as they own. So, and we did operate it. We cut the trees, went to the Ouachita Mountains, chose the best trees, cut the trees, produce a paper, and just wave and said, okay, save the trees. And we did some beauty contents, okay. Well, we have all these beautiful ladies. We have got Earth Day, Earth content. We have all these beautiful ladies hanging all this paper thing, okay, stop burning waste, reduce carbon emission, save the energy, but most of the people won't stare up to what they are holding, but will stare to the beauty of the girls. So anyway, we got something out of it. So we thought, okay, we'll use different tools. So we went up and put a piece of policy, producing strategy papers, white papers, what they call it, green papers, whatever, directives, treaties, and all this kind of piece of strategy, policy, and legislation, all these laws. So I'll talk a little bit briefly here about what's happening in European Union level. And for those who are not familiar, and there's nothing wrong with that, Europe is the second smallest continent in the Earth, which got something like 10.3 million kilometers square, or in square miles it would be 4.6. So which is a little bit, maybe 10% the size of USA together. And that's how the Europe as a continent, which has 50 states, as many states as US does. We have 6 partly recognized states, including Kosovo, but okay, it doesn't really matter much. And European Union, in contrary, is a political, social, and economical union of 28 countries. So they are the most developed countries, and these are the countries which are, the flags are listed here. That's European Union one, but these are Belgium, and all these countries going all the way to Germany, Great Britain, and the last one, country which joined Europe on 1st of January 2015 was Croatia. So at European level, I'll talk now at European level, policy at European level. From the early beginning, actually, from the Treaty of Rome, which signed 5 years after the establishment of European Coal and Steel Committee, which is Treaty of 1952, which sort of set the establishment of European Union, Europe made it clear from the beginning that said, okay, the community shall have its task improvement of quality of environment. And in Article 174, they say community policy on the environment shall contribute to the pursuit of the following objectives: preserving, protecting, and improving the quality of environment. So Europe made it clear from the beginning what the aim and the objectives of environmental protection are. And nowadays, in 2015, Europe sort of stands halfway through between the initiation of EU environmental policy, which started actually in 1973, which was a little behind US policy on environmental issues, and the EU vision, EU 2050 vision, living well with the limits of planets. So on these 40 years from 1973 to date, Europe has made a notable progress. And there is a huge piece of legislation put on place, which, what I read in the EU document, is said among the most comprehensive modern set of standards in the world. I don't know if that's true, but I should believe that. And the body of environmental laws, which is called environmental acquis, or the common law, environmental common law, it includes more than 500 pieces of directives, regulation, and decision. So Europe, although they sort of got some lesson from US, in 1973 started what they called action programs. So they said, okay, we'll go from the word, we'll really do some action. So, and especially after Maastricht Treaty in 1992, these action programs, they have a binding character. They outline priority objective for community action, they set deadlines, and provide for measures that have to be taken. I've listed, to date, we have 7 action programs. I'm not going to read all of them, but I just want to go through and say, okay, how the Europe has moved from setting the priorities. If you see the first action program in 1973, 1976, the idea was pollution should be prevented at the source, which is one of the basic principles of environmental policy. In the second action program, they emphasized control measures. In the third action program, they said, okay, we'll integrate environmental aspect with other policies. Environmental issues cannot work alone, so we have to integrate somehow them with other environmental policies, other policies, the country policies or European policies. In the fourth action program, they will say, okay, we have good piece of legislation, we have all the strategy papers, but we're still lacking, are a bit behind with effective implementation of environmental directives. So we'll move forward to that. On the fifth action, which was sort of 1993-2000, came really right after Brundtland Commission and its definition on sustainable development, 1987, which put the emphasis always on sustainable development, using as many resources and living for the next generation. So the fifth action program emphasized sustainable development, reuse, and recycle. The sixth action program, 2002-2012, under the vision, Our Future, Our Choice, always emphasized because we had a new European candidate country join the EU. So EU started with 6 countries with this European Steel and Coal Committee. in 1952, and today it has in 28 countries. So we always emphasize that we have to integrate the environmental aspect in other policy areas and promote sustainable development candidate countries. Candidate countries are countries which have signed some kind of agreement but are not yet part of EU. So, and they did a review, they took a review, they asked several people, including governmental officials and NGOs representatives, and they said that the EU is still not on the way to sustainable development in candidate countries, so including Albania. So they initiated a 7th program, which has been adopted by decision in November 2013. There are a lot of priorities, there are double as many as I have put there, but I would like to emphasize 2 of them. Protect, conserve, and enhance the natural union, natural capital, and the last one, to improve the evidence base for environmental policy. I mean, politicians most of the times do what they think is the best. Sometimes they're about science, but that's not always the case. So the EU is moving more toward this objective. So improve the evidence base for environmental policy. So that's where Europe stands today. How Europe addresses the main challenges are, well, these politicians, I sort of got to learn a few things about politics, sort of would like to have its legacy. And the EU is governed by a body which is called the European Commission, which is sort of government of Europe, and they have 28 commissioners. And one of them is Commissioner for Environment, and the last Commissioner for Environment was a Slovenian guy, and he said, okay, when he got into office, he said, I'll have 2 objectives. One will be the resource efficiency, and the second one will be biodiversity. And although Europe was going through an economic crisis, he managed to do that. So European Commission had made resource efficiency one of the flagships of its strategy to 2020. And that means producing more value with less input, using resources in a sustainable way. And the roadmap to resource-efficient Europe, adopted in 2011, contained milestones across the different policy areas. The second issue, the biggest issue, is biodiversity. In 2011, the EU adopted an updated biodiversity strategy, which always combined with strong nature protection legislation. And this has culminated with this network of protected area, which is called Nature 2000, a pan-European network. They are doing very, very well. I have to admit that. And today is this Nature 2000, which is only in EU countries, not in candidate countries or other European countries, covers more than 26,000 sites and almost 18% of EU territory. In candidate countries, we have a different network, which is called Emerald. And the target is, okay, according to the EU directives, we should aim also having something like 18% of the country covered by protected areas. And in Albania, we are almost at that point. We have 17.6% of the territory covered by protected areas. Although I have to admit again, I mean, I have been one of the guys leading the biodiversity strategy team. Most of these protected areas are assigned only in paper. I know they'll have lost a lot of their biodiversity values. Anyway, what's happened now at global, let's have a bigger picture. Globally, we have a treaty overcrowd. We have more, I mean, global political world leaders have signed an impressive 500 recognized agreement, internationally recognized agreement. And they include all pieces of, environment, starting from atmosphere-related, biodiversity-related, chemicals, and more than almost 200 pieces related to the different issues of water. After trade, environment is the most common area of global rule-making. And according to a recent study of United Nations Environmental Program, there are more than 280 agreements which are completely dedicated. I mean, here I said 196 conventions that are broadly related to issues dealing with water. Here are 200 pieces of international agreement related only to environment, in the pure meaning of environment. So we never had so many goals, objectives, so many treaties. It seems the government spent years, they have done that with all the environmental international environmental treaties, spend years negotiating environmental agreements, but then willfully ignore them. I took a class on biodiversity issues on, it was back in 1997, and I had one of the big shots of the superstars, if I could say that, of biodiversity, Professor Vernon Haywood. And he was one of the I think was the chairman of the organizing committee of the Rio 1992, so the biodiversity, the biggest biodiversity conference. And he said it took them 6 years to negotiate for that CBD, Convention on Biodiversity. But still, we have all this agreement, still we got a lot of problems. So the question is, what is wrong with environmental policy or environmental governance at all? Is something wrong in the system, or, these agreements, are just promises by the politicians who would like to wave them in front of the electorate? Well, I got some answer which let's sort of give an idea what is going on. Many agreements on environmental issues fail to work because they sort of overlap, or because government sign other trade or economy agreement which really trump the environment. Play the card, have better cards than environment. I put an example from a law which was really considered very good in Albania, which is a law on integrated waste management. The law is transposed to Albanian legislation according to the EU directive on waste management. And in 2011, Albanian parliament passed that law, which allows, among others, there are two articles, Article 22 and Article 49, allows the industry to import waste from other countries to Albania. But Albania is not a very well-controlled country, let's say. There are still things, smuggling and something going through the custom. And the civil society was afraid and was frightened that with this normal waste, something like hazardous or toxic waste could get into the country. So they started rallying and protesting. And they sent piece of papers and petitions, all these kind of things to the European Commission. And for certain reason, I have been part of that, those few people who met the Commissioner, Janez Potočnik, and he made it clear, well, I can understand you, I come from Eastern Europe, I come from Slovenia, I know what the problems are, but Albania signed a free trade treaty, so waste should be treated as any other commodity, so there's no way to get out of that. Either you say, okay, I don't want to be part anymore of this free trade agreement, or you have to accept that. So, and this is one thing. The second thing is there are simply too many bodies in making piece of legislation, many to agreement. Global environment issues are governed by more than what at least the UN environmental program was reported, are governed by more than 35 UN organizations, which are located in different places, often with overlapping mandates. I put a few of them. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change headquarters are in Bonn in Germany. The CBD headquarters, the Convention on Biological Diversity, are located in Montreal. CITES, okay, Convention on Immigration Convention of Trade Endangered Species. It's in Geneva. And there are some other, like FAO, located in Rome, and some other are in Kenya, some other Namibia, and everywhere in the world we have some governed body, environmental governed bodies. So that fragmentation can lead to conflicting agendas, geographic dispersion, and inconsistency. And third, which I think is also a good reason, signing the international treaties on the international stage make the politician looks good. They get all together, nice suit and tie, but they have these expensive suits, something maybe some several €1,000, and but they are not transposed in the domestic law. And according to laws, domestic laws, each piece of legislation and international treaties have to be ratified by the parliament. I don't know if here is the Congress or Senate does that. But anyway, in case of US, for example, US failed to ratify at least 10 of the most important international agreements, including the Basel Convention on Waste, Kyoto Protocol on reducing CO2 emissions, Biodiversity Convention, CBD, and many others. So here we are. I mean, this talk was not about really finding who is the bad, the good, and the ugly guy. And because I still think nobody is the best. That's a movie from Terence Hill. But still challenges remain. Habitat loss and fragmentation is increasing. Many important species are being extant to certain regions of the world. Waste is piling up. I can see it anywhere. I mean, I don't really consume much at my place here, my condo, but still, because here 80% of the food is half ready, I mean, half the way, half prepared, or whatever you would say, you just end up with piles of garbage, and that's happening everywhere. It's good that you recycle, but still waste is waste. And air and water pollution is growing, and ecosystem services, which are related with the healthy ecosystems, are really declining. So coming back to the basic question, are we jeopardizing the environment? Yes, we did. But I still hope there is hope in the long run. So I hope things will get better in the future. And if one day my son will ask, "Dude, where's your country?" I could answer, "Here's your country." Cherish the natural wonder, cherish the natural resources, cherish the history of Romance as a sacred heritage for your children and your children. And do not let selfish men and greedy interests in your country of its beauty, its riches, or its romance. And that's said by one of the world's greatest conservationists, Theodore Roosevelt. Thank you, Bob, for that picture. The picture there is from the Clinton Presidential Library. Bob guided me through a tour, and that picture stayed in the Oval Office. Okay, cabinet room. Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, here's the end of my talk. I would really like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Gazi. Take some questions.
Yeah, I'm open for questions. I was expecting that the dean would say that.
All right, we got a question back here. Wait, and the microphone will come to you.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us today. My name is SCYLLA Joshi. I'm a first-year Clinton student. My question regards the environmental impact that cities that are built on modern transportation for cars versus cities in Europe that were built centuries ago that have winding roads that are not accessible to modern cars these days, which create an easier method or system to serve solving environmental issues. Hamburg in Germany, for example, wants to eliminate cars from the center of the city by 2034, creating this green network. Same thing with Madrid and other cities in Europe. Is there any feasible method to solve these issues in the United States where cities are built upon modern transportation for cars versus European cities?
Well, it's good that you brought the example of Germany, and especially a city which I know very well, Hamburg. Hamburg is a huge city. It's 1.5 million. I mean, huge according to my standards and to Albanian standards. 1.5 million, I mean, to me sounds huge cities. I mean, I know that you've got New York with 14 or 18 million, but still, well, things started a while ago. So Germans sort of realized that they have to they have to live with what they got. And but there's nothing, I mean, I don't have the user manual to tell that, but so in my personal opinion, there should be a way that the US should come to that, I mean, use more public transportation. I suffered myself, you know. Chrissy drove me anywhere, but somehow I thought I could escape her. And I'm living in a condo nearby cities, river cities, whatever they call it, bus station. So I got a bus and I went to Walmart and Best Buy because I wanted to buy a camera. So then I was stuck there. So I had to call a cab. Well, I sort of developed my survival instinct. So there was a tire repairman shop, a car repairman shop, and I said, I went to this guy and said, okay, I didn't have a phone with me neither. So I said, could you call a cab, a taxi, and for me, and the guy did. But it was very expensive. I mean, but the problem with U.S. cities is they were developed. I mean, there are good examples. New York, to me, has a good transportation system. They got train anywhere, everywhere, so I could live well with that. I have visited New York a couple of years ago. Here, we discussed yesterday with Jim. The problem is that you got too much land that's not really very well regulated, land use regulation. It should come to a point that the government, either the federal government or the states, should put some piece of legislation. To me, it sounds really waste of land. I mean, what we got in Albania, we have 0.6 hectare arable land for a person, per capita. And here, I don't know the numbers, how big should be. But so imagine 0.6 hectares, which is sort of 1.2 acres per capita, and then imagine the misuse of land here. Well, there are no recipes, at least I'm not in a position to prescribe recipes for that, but certainly it's a big issue. Europe is doing better because, sorry, Europe is doing better, the last sentence.
Okay.
Europe is doing better because they now even this seventh action program, they have a special emphasis on these cities. I didn't mention that, but they'll do better, I'm sure.
Good. Yes, ma'am, right here.
Of Naples and the city waste there. Is there any movement in Eastern Europe to do what Sweden has done and use the methane from their municipal waste to run sewer systems and lights? Has that technology reached Eastern Europe?
As I sort of following up what I just said, one of the objectives that this seventh action program got, priority objective is sort of improving the life of the cities. I know for sure that starting from 2014, EU Commission is not financially supporting anymore landfills. So they said everything has to go through recycling. And I had a lecture with a student last week, and I showed actually that I don't have access right now, but the European Commission is taking things more seriously, and they sued to court Spain because of the landfills, the misuse of landfills, so that they're disposing waste not in proper way. So I think Europe is moving towards that. But I mean, there are some countries which are a little bit a step ahead and sort of serve as locomotives for the other country. So for a while, Germany was doing very well on renewable resources. So this was sort of acting as a locomotive, dragging the whole thing, pulling the whole European countries. Now Sweden and Denmark, Copenhagen got that the objective that by 2020 there will be carbon zero. So they are there pulling ahead. But it's good that there are always some countries which can pull ahead, so the track.
We've got time for one more question right here, and here comes the microphone.
I'm Evan Brown. It's easy to be pessimistic, and from your presentation there was more data supporting the pessimism. Words like sustainability to me really grab me the wrong way. Does that mean continued sustainable growth, or does it mean steady state? Both of them seem to be a problem. The image I get is we're all on the Titanic. The captain is taking a break someplace. We can't work together to figure out how things are going. And all of our treaty writing and so forth is just optimizing our deck chairs. So I need more faith that there's going to be a future.
Okay. My last presentation, my two last slides were really, I thought that sort of brought optimism to the people. Said, hopefully things will get better in the future. And that's why I said, with my son. So, will be a future, and I'm optimistic about that. Actually, my name something like some kind of, in Albanian if you translate it, means something like a joy. So by the nature, and by the name, maybe I'm just sort of optimistic person. I'm not saying that there's no way out. I'm saying that these are the problems. And a good doctor would say, a good physician would say, the first will diagnose the problem, and then we'll say, okay, that's a recipe, a way out. I'm not able to give you recipes, and I don't take that burden with me. But there will be a way out. I mean, we have 35, let's say, 500 pieces of legislation concerning environment. But EU, for example, now, well, I didn't want to go that very deep because it took already 48 minutes. So, and I could elaborate a little bit more, but now the new commission in environment set up some new objectives and put some new challenges. So if there are all these pieces of legislation concerning waste management, one of the challenges that EU Commission is taking on is reducing this piece of legislation, or sort of putting things together. And if there are more EU governing bodies, UN governing bodies, to some point they have to come together. They are realizing things that can't work like that. Sustainability to me means a continuous growth. But we have to use our resources wisdomly. I mean, as I said, Keynes, there are really good reports. There is plenty of aluminum out there that could be enough, with today's level of use of aluminum, could be enough for 300 years. So, I mean, I can imagine how much of it is consumed here nowadays. See, on the tables I could see 10 canes and see 20 bottles, and so this resource efficiency, I think it's a big deal. And they put all these categories for electrical use, so A+, B+, and all these kind of things. So I think that still there is hope long term.
You know, one of the great things that our faculty does, Dr. Stanford does this, Dr. Williams does this, they bring people here, like Ghazi and others, visiting scholars, not only for you all to enjoy, but for our students to have the opportunity to interact. And you could just see with his presentation, not only did he know about the issue, but for a guy from Albania, he has the most wonderful sense of humor that I've seen as well. And these are just such enriching experiences. So thank you, Christy, for doing that. And Ghazi, thank you very much for this very enlightening and very informative lecture. And we are honored to have you at the Clinton School.